and welcome back to my channel. Today, as you can see, I'm having a bit of an autumn tidy up. The garden starts to look a little bit tired and needs a bit of a tidy this time of year as everything starts to die back. But there's still quite a lot in flower, and I've still got actually quite a lot of veg growing, which is nice, but it does need a bit of TLC, shall we say. So I thought I'd just take you along and show you what I'm doing. And don't worry, I'm not crazy. There's somebody else in the garden with me. They're off camera, so you can't see them. So I'm not gone mad and talking to myself. Although I do often talk to myself in the garden, or the dogs. So here I am cutting down my tomato plants because they've all gone over now. I topped them towards the end of the summer, so I took the top part of the plant out, just the top few inches of the plant, so it wouldn't produce any more flowers or fruit, and then that gives the plant all the energy then can go into ripening the fruit that's already there, because this time of year, usually in the autumn time, you wouldn't get any more sort of ripe fruit. It would try and produce more fruit, but they probably wouldn't ripen before winter, and then they'd start to go off on the plant. So I top them, and that just helps it all ripen faster. As you can see, I'm clearing them out now, because they're all gone over. Oh, there's my helper. Bless her. She tries to help. She just wants to play though. Keeps her occupied. So quick question for you, how's your garden looking this autumn? Comment below, just let us know what your garden's like. Jill likes to spend a lot of time with me in the garden. She's always out with me and helping or hindering, whichever. She's very good though, and but she does like to find every stone that's in the garden. She likes me to throw them for her. But we don't like her to have stones because, as if you're dog owners yourselves, you know they ruin their teeth. So I don't want her teeth worn down really by eating stones, or even for her to swallow them. So I throw them over the fence so she can't get to them. But she loves the run and chase anyway. She loves to chase after them. She doesn't believe that I've thrown the stone. She doesn't believe me. It's like, I haven't. I promise I've thrown it. It's quite a windy day and everything's getting blown about. We've got a few sunflowers, I don't know if you can see behind me. There's a few sunflowers that have actually been snapped off at the base. They're due to come out anyway because the seed heads are going over and they're ripening. So I'll be cutting those to dry them in a minute, you shall see. But they have snapped, so I do need to get rid of them now. They need to come out of the garden. I've got a couple over in the back part of the garden where I do my insect garden and wildlife gardens. So I've got a few growing over there that I've cut, and the birds are going to have their fun with those. They're going to snack on those. But these ones in the vegetable patch I'm going to dry, and I'll save them for next year then. I did do a video on this a couple of weeks ago with some of the earlier heads that were setting already. So I'll try and tag that below. I'll try and link that in the description so you can check that out. So if you want to save your own sunflower seeds ready for next year, save some money, snack on them if you want, you can eat them, or do what I do and just save some for the birds and sow some. So I'm just putting all the bamboo canes in one place. I won't leave them where I'm putting them there, but I just bundle them up and then put them in the shed ready for next year, because there isn't an awful lot over winter in my garden that actually needs support, in my vegetable patch anyway. So they'll just all come out and then they'll go into the shed, and then just so the weather doesn't get to them. Not that they really affect them, but you know. They'll be out the way and tidy, ready for next year. You can see flying around there where I'm taking out my courgette plants. I've got my verbena. I seeded, well, I kind of self-seeded some verbena in the vegetable patch, and the bees love them so much I thought, no, I'm just going to leave them. I'll just let them grow away, and then the bees can then go and pollinate my vegetables as well. They've been a really effective pollinator attractor, if you like. So I've left them in, and I'll probably grow them again next year. Well, now this one, my courgette plants have been rubbish this year. I normally have 3 or 4 plants, and I normally get like 5 times the amount of courgettes I could eat in a lifetime. So many courgettes, I give them to friends and family and all sorts. But this year, they have been awful. I've literally just had like maybe a dozen, maybe a few more courgettes. Nothing to freeze over winter. It's been awful. So I won't be growing that type of courgette again next year. I tried something new. I normally grow Defender, and they grow really well, and I always get loads. But I thought, I'll try something new this year. Nope, we won't be doing that again. And my plans for 2022, scarily 2022, feels like I've lost 2 years somewhere along the line, is to try and learn a bit more about permaculture in my vegetable patch. A bit more permanent vegetable planting. I've got quite a bit of fruit trees and things growing around the garden, but I wanted to go and find out a bit more about permaculture in the garden. So that's my plan for 2022 to learn a bit more about that. So I have less of a gap between seasons. It's a bit more early start and late finish if I can. So that'd be interesting to find out. So watch this space, because I'm sure I'll be doing some videos on that as well as I go through, as I learn more about it. So if you're interested in permaculture or just extending your growing season in the garden, let us know in the comments, and I'll try and do some videos sooner rather than later, as and when I sort of pick the information up. This verbena's gone a bit wild, you can see in front of me there. It loves it. I've got quite a lot around the garden, to be fair, but because the bees love them. But the ones in the vegetable patch went a bit crazy. But I didn't want to cut them down or do anything with them, because, as I say, the bees love them, and it was bringing the bees into the vegetable patch. It's not a bad thing. Now I'm deadheading some of my, I think it's biddens I've got there, and I've got some yellow mini cosmos as well growing. They're growing really well and they're still in full flower, so I'm just deadheading them to keep them going a bit longer. But as soon as we get a hard frost in a minute, then they'll just die off. But while they're willing to flower, I'm going to keep deadheading try and prolong the life of the plant as much as I can, because they're doing such a good job and they look so lovely. They're really brightening up the garden. Bless her, here she comes again. Do you have dogs like this? They want to get involved, or even cats. And I've got some friends that their cats like to get involved when they're in the garden, help them. They say help, but it's not really helping. They think they're helping. Bless her, she's so happy. I will say though, she's not very plant friendly sometimes when she stomps all over the garden, but she hasn't managed to damage much yet. She's okay, but she's quite a dainty dog. That's the first sunflower heads going into the greenhouse, ready to be dried. So just cutting the stems down there to get rid of them, put them in the compost. Just tidies them up, ready. So I'll dry the sunflower heads, the flower heads off. And then when they're dry, they're as good as dry now, but I'll leave them in the greenhouse for a bit and then dry them out. And then I'll store the seeds ready for next year to sow some more. As I say, I'll sow them and I'll scatter some over in the back garden in the wildflower area to grow for the birds as well. They're really nice when they're grown wild, especially when you save the seeds and it's free. It's always better. My sunflowers are really strong this year, so they didn't need an awful lot of support, which is amazing. But the wind we've had in the last few weeks has really challenged them, and let's say it broke a couple over, but yeah, they've been really good. There's Jack, and he's curious about the flower. Curious little bear. I wanted to see what the sunflower is all about. As you can see, he's less worried about playing in the garden with me. He likes to just sleep in the sunshine. He comes over and just checks in every now and then, but most of the time he's asleep, quite happily. And you see my stack of bamboo canes is filling up there. You can see it on camera. After a good tidy up, the garden always looks so much nicer, and the plants that are thriving at the moment can grow because they have more space, more light, and they're just, it's all freer for them to get going. So having a good clear up's probably a good idea every now and then anyway. When it all starts to go over a bit more and the beds start to empty a bit, I will use my homemade compost to heavily mulch the beds, and then that will break down and condition the soil as it goes. But I don't dig too much in those raised beds or in any of my garden really, because I want to maintain the ecosystem in the ground. So it's basically a no dig garden. So I just, to plant anything in the garden, I make as minimal damage, if you like, to the soil. So just dig where I need to dig. So I don't dig it over every year, I just mulch, and then that breaks down over the winter, conditions the soil, ready for the spring, and it's always really nice and loose. Really good soil. So it's a little bit early for me to do that now, in my garden anyway, because there's so much still growing and there's still quite a lot that I've got to plant, to be fair, as well. So as soon as I've got everything planted ready, then I will go over it with my homemade compost and just give it a good old mulch. I would love that, all those nutrients for over winter, set it up for spring nicely, and then when the weather starts to warm up in spring and I start to sow the seeds, sow my seeds, my vegetable seeds in the spring, it'll be already set up, ready for them. That's my last tomato plant in the corner. I grew some nice varieties this year, a couple that I hadn't grown before. I had a nice cherry tomato, which was a real dark purple, it was real dark, nearly black. They called it black cherry. I've had a yellow one, which I can't remember what it's called now. So a yellow cherry tomato again. I've grown the Heinz tomato, which was bought from me a few years ago, and I've just kept the seeds each year, and they've grown really well. They're like a plum tomato, so they're very nice. And then I've got the normal Gardener's Delight, old favourites, and a beefsteak called Brandywine, which is a really nice dark purpley red coloured one as well, which is really nice dark flesh inside. So that's grown really well as well. So I've got quite a few different varieties this year, but the cherry tomatoes always do really well in the garden. And I grow most of them in the greenhouse as well. So we come to the end and it all looks a little bit tidier, but there's still a bit of work to do. And as soon as it all starts to dry up a little bit more, then I'll mulch and it will be set up ready for spring then, for new seeds to be sown. Thank you for joining me guys, and don't forget to like and subscribe. See you later.